Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folane. I hope we meet you well. My guest this morning is Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu. He's a former military officer and as well as former deputy head of security at the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and also, let's get this right, adjunct professor George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies in Germany. Now the group captain is a private security consultant. Good morning to you, formerly Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired.
Good morning, Yori, and good morning, viewers.
Indeed, thank you very much. Straight away, what sort of led us looking for you, as an expert in this whole matter, is what is being referred to as the big offensives, the big offensive against bandits and terrorists, and the encouraging numbers that we're seeing nowadays of, well, so many people, some have been killed, some have been captured. In short, the kind of news that, let it be said, people were expecting within the first 12 months of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, it didn't happen. We were given all sorts of reasons. It was in the public space, but now it is happening. So I want to ask you, as a professional and as a teacher in security matters, what exactly was going on then that has changed now? And it seems that all hands seem to be on deck. I use the word seem in that sentence advisedly, seem to be on deck, and that we might very well see the end of our woes with bandits and terrorists. What changed, Group Captain?
Thank you very much. I like the way that you started that the Nigerian armed forces and even the Nigerian police, right from 1960, when Nigeria first got independence, they have acquitted themselves very well. Right from the first, Congo operation, in which most of our military leaders, whether you talk about President Obasanjo, the current president, Murtala, they all took part in that operation, and they acquitted themselves very well, even when the Nigerian armed forces was in infancy. The same thing with our police. When you start with Inspector General of Police Louis Edet, who was also in Congo, we have made our mark. So when you look at that, you will realize that historically, Nigerian armed forces or security forces in general are a professional, and well-tested, a well-experienced organization. However, over the years, like we say in everything in our national life, things could deteriorate. They could deteriorate due to lowering of standards. They could deteriorate into complacency. The war-making machine or the security machine is like a knife. If you don't sharpen it constantly and you keep it in your kitchen, the day that you have to cut something and you're looking for it, it might be blunted. When I research how we have been treating our military or security forces, especially after the ECOMOG operations in Sierra Leone and Liberia, we have not kept pace.
Okay, it looks like it froze there, but I'm sure we're going to get it back momentarily. Speaking with Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, a private security consultant and adjunct professor at the George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies. Okay, Group Captain, you're back. While you were speaking, just towards the end of your opening statement, it froze. So I don't know if you could, bring us back to maybe the last 2 or 3 sentences you made.
Okay, what I was saying is that right from independence, our security forces have made names for themselves in various fora in the international community. But however, what happens is that if you look at our history, since after our operations in Liberia and Sierra Leone, we are not sharpening our security architecture in terms of number, in terms of equipment, in terms of training. And like I was saying, the security machine is like a knife. If you keep it and you don't sharpen it constantly, the day that you need to cut something, you will find that the knife is blunted. That is exactly what happened to us when we started the Boko Haram, Saka 2010, 2011, that's when it started. And then later, when this current administration came, it was added with farmers, herders conflict, with kidnappers, with terrorists. With a military and police that was unprepared for the task at hand.
Okay.
In terms of numbers, in terms of equipment, in terms of training. So definitely, all those years that we are going, we were struggling, fighting these operations, and at the same time, bringing the security and the police and other security agencies up to speed. It is not easy. Like the Hausa proverb said, it is not easy for somebody to be running and be scratching his backside at the same time. That is what we have been doing. So, but as fate would have it, what we have been seeing was a ding-dong affair. Today, our security forces have the upper hand. Tomorrow, the non-state actors have the upper hand. Today, we catch this piece of ground. Tomorrow, the non-state actors recapture that piece of ground. It has been a ding-dong affair. But as has been generally acknowledged, especially, I can say precisely within the last 2 months, maybe June, July, August, we have been seeing an impressive result coming from the security forces. Whether it is in the northeast, or it is in the northwest, north central, or even in the southeast where we have separatist agitations. We have been seeing improvements in terms of result. And when I say improvements, you see, I was in the military, but a private security consultant, because you want to help, is looking for a solution. Sometimes you have to avoid what I will call association bias. In trying to find out whether there is success or not, one may not implicitly rely on what the security forces are saying. You will listen to them, but then you will also check other institutions, other sources that are independent, and then you cross. When you do that, you have a clear picture. Right now, as we are talking, whether you take from what the security agencies are publicizing themselves, whether you take what we are hearing, reputable agencies like the Center, like the American CFR, that is Council for Foreign Relations, they have, a project called Nigeria Security Tracker, which is 2011. They give you day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, the security situation on the ground. You also have another, source called Accolade. That is armed conflict location events data. Now, why I'm saying this, like I said, is to avoid association bias. When people like us who are in the military or in the security agencies are commenting, there is that tendency to pander to what the military say. But if you are looking for solutions, you have to keep that at arm's length. Not that you will not listen to them, you would listen to them, but then you will also mix it with what you are hearing from other sources. Okay. Even in Nigeria here, it is almost unanimous in the last 1 month and this month, almost all the media are clear that we're having improvements, marked improvements. Is it in the number of attacks? Is it in the number of people being rescued, as you are showing on your screen? Is it in the reduction of number of even security forces that are being killed? There are so many indices, which each of them, if you look, you will see that definitely there's an improvement. Now, having said that, in every war, like we're seeing even in the Ukraine-Russia war, it is a trend. Sometimes it will go up, sometimes it will go down. All these indices I mentioned, sometimes there will be improvement, sometimes there will be regression. What is important is the political masters. And here when I say political masters, with due respect, we are talking of democracy. So even President Muhammadu Buhari is a political leader because he's president first, between being commander-in-chief, before being said he was a former commander. What the political masters should be doing is always to be checking back. When there's improvement, they give the security forces a tap on the back. When there is a regression, you call them and ask them, why is there a regression? You could do a month-by-month analysis. You could do a year-by-year analysis. For example, if you want to do a month-by-month analysis, you will look at the figures for July. You look at the figures on August. Are you August? Are you improving or regressing?
Okay.
If you are regressing, you ask for, for explanations. If you are improving, fine.
Group C, sorry to interrupt you. Thank you. It's quite interesting to hear your explanation for the position of why wasn't all of this done? And you use the analogy of a blunt knife. Well, the surprising part about that to me was that it's said that it's in peacetime that you prepare for war, and I would have expected that military people would know that better than anybody. And Mr. President, being a general, no less, I just took it for granted that with President Muhammadu Buhari coming on board, we're going to see changes. He understands the army like probably no civilian president would. But then you explained it is what it is, we have what we have, and now, as he's counting down, shall we say, his final year in service, is when we're getting all of this action. And there are people who are saying that if only this tempo had been, begun, initiated, and held for, from around the first year towards the end of the first year, whatever you want to allow for planning. Because we've continued to spend a lot of money on the military. And in recent times, very distressing information has been coming out alleging improper behavior as regards finances that would have gone towards doing what you've just said, strengthening, sharpening that metaphoric knife you were talking about. We hear that there are Nigerians, compatriots, who, when you look at it, allegedly, were working against this aim, simply because there's more benefit in confusion, more benefit in chaos, financial that is, to some people, whereas it is heart-wrenching to others. Are you concerned about the caliber of people in our very high command? Because Mr. President is the commander-in-chief, but he's not going to do everything. He's going to rely on his lieutenants within the services. So corruption within the services, they would have contributed much to the problem.
First, permit me to add on the blunting of the security knife.
Yes.
A cursory look since Nigeria returned to democracy. Now I will say maybe we are victims of our past history of being a military regime. When democracy came back, whether it is said overtly or not, there was this fear that how do you contain the military so that they do not do a coup? Probably there's this idea that maybe the best thing is to degout the military or to weaken the military so that democracy can have a long stay. Nobody was thinking of Boko Haram. Nobody was thinking of bandits. Nobody was thinking of kidnappers. So when you look back through the years up to this regime, that's the emphasis on sharpening the operational machine. So I just want to say that it started long ago. Now, on the issue of budgeting or using resources, wherever I find myself, as somebody who is also a scholar and an expert in security sector reform, you will find that in terms of budgeting for security military, including intelligence services, it is how the money is used. What do I mean here? Even bringing it to the simplistic level of a family unit. If you give maintenance money and you do not put an eye on what is done, if you don't put a name to every kobo that you give, you may, in practice, give madam a very large amount of money. But if not for the grace of God, your children may be malnourished. Now, the point I am making, democracy is very clear. In democracy, the political master is king. The military man, the intelligence man, the policeman, the DSS man is only an employee of the political leaders. Whereas all the security agencies will have internal checking mechanisms. You will hear what they call it, inspectorate. You'll hear evaluation. These are internal mechanisms. But both the executive branch and the legislative branch, they are there for oversight. when you allocate money for a certain thing, ensure that for every money you give, don't leave any lease fund. Every money should be pinned down to a project or to an equipment. And you must check to ensure that money that you pin for equipment or for a pin project was used. If it is not used, before you approve money for next year, you also do an audit to ensure. We hear auditors report, there's Auditor General. To my understanding, Auditor General is supposed to audit all organizations. With due respect, I've never had any Auditor General's report which talked about military. Okay, the last year I had they talk about missing weapons in the police, but what of the finances? What of the budgeting? So the point I am making, whereas you select senior security, whether police, whether military, and give them responsibilities, whereas you approve their budget, your work does not stop here. The executive branch, through the commander as the president as commander-in-chief, through the Minister of Defense if you are talking about the military, through the Minister of Police Affairs if you are talking of the police, through the Minister of Interior if you are talking of other paramilitary agencies, you need to check what is being done with that money. I will say it based on research I have done. The current regime as it is, probably naira for naira, dollar for dollar, you can hardly find any government that put money into security more than this government. That is a fact. There's
really?
no doubt about that.
That's a surprise. It's surprising that you said that.
Remember, apart from the budget we see going to National Assembly, there are a lot of extra budgetary releases which are not captured. So what I'm saying, there is no doubt a lot of money is going there. But as we're hearing from the CPC chairman and others, you have to follow the money to see what is being done for.
Exactly.
If it is not done, it is not only the military or the security that is to be blamed, but more the political masters from the executive branch, from the legislative branch.
So, the supervisory aspect of governance maybe was lacking, as you've just said. Even as you've said that, look, naira for naira, dollar for dollar, whatever currency for whatever currency, very few administrations, if any, has invested as much in the military as the Muhammadu Buhari administration has. But from the conversation we've been having, you said that, however, is not the end of it. There must be supervisory control. You can't just leave things to God. So maybe that was lacking, and because in the light of all the stories that we're now hearing of very high-ranking military officers having to explain certain aspects of their actions, certain possessions, and all of that kind of a thing, it does seem as if they were left to run. And even though they must have sworn to an oath, nevertheless, we have what we have. But it does look now as if realization has dawned, realization along the lines that you're talking about. And maybe, as you said, in the past month or two, that's why we're getting this kind of a situation. Everybody is now alert and on their toes because it's not going to be business as usual, which is what President Muhammadu Buhari told us almost 8 years ago, that should he come to office, it won't be business as usual. Perhaps in the military, they are now saying that it's not business as usual, and we have a job of work to do. Would you say that's a fair assessment, that supervisory control was lacking before?
Yes. It is lacking, both at the executive branch, we have to say the fact, both at the executive branch, at the legislative branch. However, I want to surmise here, I was not there when the president, if I remember, beginning July, he had another round of meeting with the security agencies. The National Register has called them. I think one of the issues that also contributed to what we are saying, I am not a fly on the wall to hear what Mr. President told the security agencies, but I think as the regime is winding up, there is this heart-to-heart talk that we have to see results commensurate with the resources that we're putting in. You hear that happening. I follow the media on all issues of security. I have had the president several times saying, whatever they require, I have given them. Almost, here I'm quoting the president almost word for word. Whatever they require, I have given them. Now, When somebody who puts you at work starts saying that whatever you required, I have given you, with due respect, I am saying that I have done my bit. It is up to you to do your bit. I have had the same phrase being used by National Assembly, whether in the Senate or House of Representatives. So if I were the head of the Army, the head of the Air Force, the head of the Navy, or the head of DSS, or the head of the police, what I am thinking is that, we wish to say, everybody wants to answer his father's name. Mr. President is answering his father's name by saying, I've given you everything. So the legislator is saying, we have given you all that you require. Now the ball is in your court. And apart from that, as a former military man, I would like to say there's also professional pride. A professional soldier or a professional policeman will not agree that a bandit or even Boko Haram is equal in terms of training or in terms of equipment or in terms of organization. So, while you have a situation where there is a ding-dong battle between a professional outfit and a ragtag outfit, I think at a certain time again, professional pride will kick in. That look, our name is at stake. We have to show that we are professionals. I always make this comparison. It's like comparing somebody who went and studied gynecology and has delivering babies safely, and somebody who opened a chemist like we have in Nigeria and operating it as an abortionist. They are not the same. So I think there's also aspect of the professional pride that is coming. Because with due respect as a former military man, I am saying that the whole reputation of the security forces is being dragged into the mud as a result of low performance. So I'm sure there will be self-criticism, there will be internal introspection. What are we going to do? Especially, as I mentioned, where the president is saying, I have given them all they require. National Assembly is going to what I require. However, because our country is facing so many security challenges, and unfortunately, even the incoming government, we hope it will end, like Minister of Interior said. But again, I am not somebody who likes fighting war by what can I say, by prediction. It is not good to say by December this thing will end.
Okay.
A reasonable estimate is to think that the next government will also inherit part of this security problem. So in the aspect of speaking truth to power, I would like to ask, as a responsible citizen, while I am blaming both the executive and the legislature for lack of oversight, the legislatures, in fact, they should ask themselves honest questions. What do they look at before they approve security budgets?
Okay. Well,
are they looking, because they do the budget, they put finance to several projects. Are you financing projects that have to do with operations? Or are you financing white elephant?
Okay. A little technical.
Projects that have nothing to do.
Okay.
I would like to see money for training. I would like to see money for recruitment. But I may not understand giving money for building bigger buildings or building military universities. I may not understand that. I'm sorry. I may not understand that. For a time when the country is at war, I may not understand that. Okay. But no kobo out of the is put in any project without the agreement of the National Assembly. Again, there is the issue of taking your legislative duties properly. If you say you're in the committee of the army, you go to a battalion, do you even know how many officers and men are supposed to be in a battalion? Do you even know what is supposed to be the equipment holding of a battalion? If you don't know that, what actually are you oversighting? You are not oversighting anything. If you're in the Air Force, do you know how many officers are the Air Force? Do you know how many aircraft they have? Do you know the serviceability they have? If you are in the Navy, do you know how many fast attack craft do they have? Do you know the manning of a fast attack craft? Do you know the manning of a frigate? Unfortunately, I interact with members of National Assembly. These basic things, the people who are supposed to allocate budget, they do not know.
I'm surprised.
So unless people start taking their job seriously, from the security agencies themselves, to people in the executive, to people in the legislature, like they say, security is everybody's work.
Yes.
If you do not do this in your oversight work, you as the legislator, you are also part of the problem.
Group C, you know, what you're saying, what you're telling me this morning in this conversation, it does put perspective on things a bit, because as you were saying earlier, I mean, the professional security in Nigeria, from the armed forces to other units, it's top notch. In fact, so much so that people have said, your fellow retired, generals have said that. Not everybody wants to speak outside anyhow, openly, but they've said that, look, if the right order is given, it doesn't take the armed forces too long to, deliver on the legal, legitimate order that has been given. So the conclusion then, until your explanation, has been, there seems to be no political will to do the right thing for whatever reason, but that there are military chiefs who have retired who are saying that the army is not that slack at all. The armed forces is not that slack at all, but they will only move as a professional force upon the right order. So there was always the problem of the political will to do the needful. And you sort of address that now. Now, the other point that surprises me that you've just told us about is that members of those specialist committees, such as the Armed Forces Committee, whatever it is, even if they didn't know anything about it before coming on board in the National Assembly, they have all these assistants and all these research fellows. I would have thought that's the very first thing they have to know about as a member of such a security force. But then you say you yourself interacted with them and you found to the contrary. How serious are we is the next question that we're then going to ask with this whole security thing, which is a technical and a professional kind of a function. So I was very surprised there. But first of all, maybe you want to address the question of the alleged lack of the political will by, let it be said, the president, to do the right thing. According to senior generals that have retired, if the right order is given, the Nigerian army doesn't need more than 3-4 weeks to completely deliver on it.
Well, when we're talking about security and the performance of our security forces, the honest truth is that there is enough blame to go around everybody. You talk a political will. Right now, we're in a democracy. Like I said, the commander-in-chief and president, even if he's not a former military man, is the commander-in-chief. We only have to look at what is happening in Ukraine and Russia. The man that is leading Ukraine in a war now is a comedian with no military service. But there is no doubt that he is the commander-in-chief. He may get it wrong, he may get it right, but he cannot pass the blame on any general.
That's right.
We've had reports he has fired generals. That is the work of the commander-in-chief. And in fact, it is for this reason, people will wonder, why is it that when President Obasanjo came, he stopped calling himself General Obasanjo? Why is it that when even Buhari came, he stopped calling himself General Obasanjo? There is a reason for that. In a democracy, the title of president is far higher than president.
That's right.
And what the message being passed there is that even if somebody is a Boy Scout, even if somebody is a comedian like the president of Ukraine, once you are commander-in-chief, you have to act like commander-in-chief. The electorate, they voted you. They didn't vote for chief of army staff. They didn't vote for CDS. They didn't vote for chief of naval staff or chief of air staff. They voted for you as commander-in-chief. So you have to act like commander-in-chief. If there is any minus in the performance of the security agencies, you will crack the whip and put everybody in line. I think that's what
you should.
Now, on the other hand, you said some people said if the correct order is given within 30 days, well, I may have a slightly different opinion. Yes, like I said, we are seeing in Ukraine, where we have a comedian leading a country into war. As the president and commander-in-chief, you have the right to order the military. But again, military by nature, especially Nigerian or African military, every military has its tradition. The Nigerian military which I served, I think in our training, in our tradition, there is this culture of not complaining. If you give a typical Nigerian commander a task which requires 100 people and he has only 30 people, he will tell you, yes, sir, I'm going to do it. It is not like that in other climes. I was in France doing my war college.
Group C, I beg your pardon for interrupting you.
In 2015, just about the time when President Buhari came in.
Group Captain, I beg your pardon for interrupting you.
In France.
Now, there are so many aspects to our security. Of course, there's the brunt. You have the armed forces and other agencies as well. You included the police. I was just wondering, there's also the intelligence aspect to this war against terrorism, insecurity, insurgency, and that kind of a thing. And oftentimes we have helpers where the security agencies, the intelligence agencies are not able to penetrate. You have helpers, go-betweens, and in that connection, as you know, Tukur Mamu, who was arrested recently in Egypt, is a Nigerian. The DSS has told a court that he's a financier, a terror financier. Now, I have heard, General, that, I beg your pardon, Group Captain, I have heard that, it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous place to be, this sort of a go-between. Because if you make inroads that our intelligence, community are not able to make on their own, you're not necessarily loved for it. In fact, there might be shall we say, strains of jealousy and that kind of a thing. Could you comment on that whole area where people who seem to be moving it forward in the eyes of, non-professionals, just watching, they oftentimes end up in a spider's web?
Thank you. First, before I comment on this, I have to say, as I have taken notice of what some newspapers reported as DSS has warned people to stop commenting. That is a wording. Some people say cautioned. I would like to say caution. Because again, you see, security is everybody's business. In as much as moderation and responsibilities exercised for an issue that involves Mamu, that involves people that are still there, it is very difficult for you to order that people should not discuss it. I just want to start with that caveat. Now, you see, the issue of what Mamu is doing, it is not something that is unknown in other territories. Here, I am talking like a private or independent hostage negotiator. I think the problem we're having here is a problem of probably Mamu is operating in a legal lacuna. What I'm saying is that in other countries, they have found, the scourge of kidnapping for ransom sometimes does not have a governmental solution. Sometimes you have to look for private individuals, mostly working through insurance companies, and they have people like Mamu who interface where government effort is not able to achieve results. But like I said, you see, the whole concept of even kidnapping is still a relatively new thing here. But Nigeria cannot be an exception. Right now, if you ask me my honest opinion, is that Mamu may be guilty. He may also be innocent. But I think the issue of Mamu will raise a debate on how I am being very pragmatic here. In any country where kidnapping for ransom is rampant, you will have people like Mamu. It is simply a case of economic theory of demand and supply. If there is kidnapping for ransom, and people are not being sprung by government efforts, whether you outlaw it whether you don't outlaw it, people will find a way to look for a mamu, another mamu. Before mamu, there have been many cases, even though I think mamu is the most prominent of such people that have emerged. Even before mamu, there have been cases where people were kidnapped and somebody, either a relative or an independent person, has gone and given ransom and those people are going. I have done training on kidnap and ransom. I have done training on negotiating hostage crisis. What I find in other climes is that after a collapse of like United States, like Italy, like Colombia, like Mexico, what they found was that the ideal thing, when there is a kidnap, the ideal thing is that you don't pay ransom, you don't do any concession, and you get the people back, safe and healthy. That is the ideal. But like everything in life, the ideal is never obtainable always. So if that option is not there, what is left for you? Some countries, just like I think there's a law before our Senate to outlaw payment of ransom. What some countries did was to say that paying of ransom, either it is by a relative, either by it is somebody like mamu, is outlawed. And if you are caught paying ransom, you will be punished. However, like we saw in the United States, it didn't take long to know that as powerful as the United States is, whereas the official stance is that no negotiation with hostage takers, they do not have enough national capacity of getting back every American that was kidnapped, either by terrorists or by other criminals. So they started looking for a middle of the road. And finally, because of appeals by people whose relatives have been caught to the president, President Obama had to cancel an existing order which says any American who pays a ransom has violated a law and will be punished. But the truth is that even before Obama canceled that order officially, there was never any American family that has ever been prosecuted for paying ransom. So it was like the law was there, but the impracticability of implementing it was there. So what was American government doing? If they kidnap your husband or your son or your relative, and you have another way, you will go and get him out. But the American government stand is that we do not negotiate with people. That is to say, the American police, the American military will not support you in negotiating with bandits. So the point I'm saying, irrespective of what happens to Mamu, this Mamu's case, I still, with due respect, I don't want to trivialize an issue. I see him as the pioneer of a new kind of profession, which we didn't know here in Nigeria. That is the independent hostage negotiator.
Indeed.
Who works outside the government security agencies because relatives of people that are kidnapped want his services and they are ready to pay. Let's be honest with ourselves. To the relatives, the important thing is getting their relative back. They do not care about the tactics or whether it is Mamu that brought that person out, whether it is police or military. So the point I'm saying, just like we're debating, so you see our security challenges are bringing many issues, which before we are not discussing. We are discussing the issue of using mercenaries, whom I like to call private military contractors. Before this, a debate that you don't do. Now we have the phenomenon of Mamu, who is not working for police, not working for military, but he has his way of getting people out of kidnappers' den.
And has his way, and knows the way.
To get guns.
He knows his way to where they are and how to meet with them.
Asking for permission to set up, whether you call it state police, whether you call it Hizbah, whether you call it Omotekun. So all these are issues that will continue to be debated. We don't know where the debate will take us to.
Okay. All right then. Thank you very much, Group C. Now, another thing that I thought we could take up here is in this offensive, this heightened offensive and the improving results that we're getting, there's this ideological matter of how does one know a repentant Boko Haramist, if that word that I just coined? It looks like there's every effort to get former, bandits, terrorists, to sort of de-radicalize them and then let them back into society and all of that. That seems to me to be one heck of a delicate operation. Yet we don't have, I don't imagine, we don't have enough cells to try people and put all that are guilty in there. How are we going to go in that whole area? The authorities are capturing so many people who are militants and terrorists and criminals. But there's this whole matter of trying to sift and find these ones have been de-radicalized. These ones will not be a threat to society anymore. How optimistic are you that we can do a good job of that?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot give you that optimism that you are searching. But I can explain the concept of de-radicalization, the concept of amnesty for people who are caught in what I would call non-international armed conflict. You see, it's a problem of law. It's also a problem of pragmatism. Nigeria is a signatory of the Geneva Conventions and the associated protocols, Protocol 1 and 2. Protocol 2, applies to non-international armed conflict. What we have in Nigeria, the counterterrorism in the Northeast, is what is called a non-international armed conflict. What does it mean by non-international armed conflict? Nigeria is not fighting another country. Rather, the fight is between Nigerian security forces or Nigerian government on the one hand, and non-state actors who unfortunately I emphasize, are also citizens. So what does the law provide? If it is an international, in fact, an international armed conflict is very easy to resolve at the end of it. We are already seeing it in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. They are already exchanging prisoners. So if it is an international armed conflict, you could say at the end of the war, or even during the war, take your people, bring my people, and that is the end. Unfortunately, in a non-international armed conflict, where the enemy in bracket is also a citizen, you cannot tell any Boko Haram that you did not kill in battle. You cannot tell any Boko Haram that surrendered. You cannot tell any Boko Haram that was injured and captured. You cannot tell him, we are sending you out of Nigeria. You are no longer a Nigerian. Even if you say that, where are you sending him to? Are you sending him to Ghana? Are you sending him to Togo? You cannot do that. So what law of armed conflict said is that at the end of a non-international armed conflict, you survey these people that are caught who are not killed and do a process, which is a systematic process, in fact, including forensics, to find out this Mr. A that was caught as a former Boko Haram, what was his level of involvement in the Boko Haram insurgency. We all know, even in the Boko Haram, they are hardcore fighters. There are some of them that even only catch fish for them. There are people that farm for them. There are women who cook food for them. So the point I am making, even in the Boko Haram, there are level of involvement of what the one has done. There are killers among them who have burnt villages, who have killed people. So what international law says is that after the conflict, you classify these people. And then, because they are citizens, because you cannot tell them to leave the country of Nigeria, you cannot remove their citizenship, unless if it is them that want to renounce their citizenship. You classify these people, and then those that have lower level of involvement, you give them amnesty. You design a de-radicalization program for them, you reintegrate them. That is what the law says. Of course, the problematic thing is that, do we have the expertise? It is not easy. Or distinguishing from Boko Haram member A and Boko Haram member B, we do not have the expertise of that doing differentiation. Unfortunately, because this thing has been going for 10 years, even the evidence you will use to decide that this member is a killer, this one is a farmer, the evidence has been lost. The first time we started trying these people in court in Kayenji, if you recall, about 450 of them were released by a court because there was no evidence. Not because they are not guilty, but because there was no evidence. The law being the law, if there is no evidence, the doubt is resolved in favor of the accused. So this is the point.
Okay, I get you. I get you, Group Captain.
The problem is timing.
Thank you.
The law says after conflict has ended.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you
finally,
very much.
Finally, you wanted to ask me, how do you know somebody will not return? Unfortunately, again, there is no magic formula that says somebody who is radicalized cannot go back. Yes.
I hear you. Thank you very much, Group Captain, tapping into your knowledge and expertise in these areas to get a better understanding. But I believe one can conclude safely with you that you are following with all of these successes, advances, and capturing of these people. You are cautiously optimistic that we really are seeing light at the end of the tunnel in terms of fight against insurgency. Is that accurate? Are you cautiously optimistic that sooner rather than later it's going to be much better than it has been?
Yes, since the conflict started, relying on many national, international, and independent sources, I have the comprehensive, data of month by month, year by year, how many people have been lost in this conflict. So when I look at the trend in the last 2 months, sometimes we have success, some have reversal. In the last 2-3 months, what I see is an improvement in our situation. The only thing I will want is whatever it is, the security forces that are doing, that is giving them this success, they should continue doing it. And the oversight agencies, the policy makers, the legislatures, remember, they should put their eye to ensure that this trend of successes is not broken, so that complacency does not go in. Having said that, like I said, I'm not the kind of expert that will tell you by December or January it will something will end, because that is what is called fighting war by preconception. I don't do that, and I will not like anybody to presume that by December or by January. But what I will say, kudos to the security forces. Whatever they are doing, let them continue doing it. The political masters in the executive and legislature, they should continue putting their eye to ensure that this trend of success is continued.
Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired adjunct professor, George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies, former spokesman, Nigerian Air Force, and now private security consultant. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Okay, so that's our program then. Well, actually, I think we should still leave a little margin this time because we had to give the expert time to express himself. In case there are any calls coming in, I think we could. I think we can. Oh, somebody is saying at this early stage he doesn't think that we have the time for the calls. Okay, so be it. I'm sorry. Probably get some of those tomorrow, and then they'll refer him back to today. I have the suspicion that a lot of you might have wanted to make a commentary one way or the other. But just for you to know, it wasn't possible for me to interrupt the group captain retired as he was speaking, as we can do in some systems of communication. This particular connection did not allow for that. That's by way of explaining why you were not able to call in while the group captain retired was speaking. So that's our program today then. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folaren. Bye-bye for now.